Hi, welcome to this third tutorial on Twitter Bootstrap. In this one I'm going to talk about layout and some content that you can add to your web page. So far we've added the drop-down navigation, and now we start working with some actual content here in the body. So I'm going to go back to my web page here, and up here I've got obviously all my navigation, my customized navigation, and down here I've got my H1 which says Hello World. And so I'm going to go ahead and just change that to something like welcome, something a little bit more appropriate for my website. And you'll notice that it's a bit too far to the edge, and I want to allow my content to be a little bit farther away from the edge instead of being all the way in the way that it is. And so to group this content and anything that I put after it all together, I'm going to go ahead and add a div class equals container. Now container divs are used a lot, and actually we already used one up in the navigation up here where it says container fluid. We just added this fluid to that class. But really what a container div is, it's going to allow you to create a div that moves along with the amount of content that you might have in it. So I'm going to go ahead and save it, and you'll see what it does is it jumps it away from the edge. And not only that, but it kind of bounces around depending on the size of the screen. And so you'll see that as it bounces around, that's well and good. But I'm going to go ahead and add that container dash fluid to it. And so when I do that, instead of bouncing around so much, it's just going to hug the edge, just like it is right there. And you'll see it also loses some of its buffer space. So it's up to you whether you want to use a container or container fluid. I'm going to go ahead and use the container fluid, and I'm just going to go ahead and welcome to the SJMC. I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then I'm going to add a paragraph of content. And I've got some already kind of written out here, so I'm just going to basically copy and paste for the sake of time, and then close the paragraph, and you can see what it'll look like with a whole lot of content. Again, it's going to give you space from the edge, and it looks pretty good along with the H1 there. So that's really, in a nutshell, creating different areas of content. We'll use these div class equals containers, and we can use them again and again. But for our layout, what we want to do is we want to kind of decide right now, based on a grid system of 12, what we want our site to look like. It looks okay right now. I mean, it doesn't really look all that great just because it's spanning the entire width of this window, and it's a little bit hard to read. So what Twitter Bootstrap has is it's got these columns that we can add. So instead of making something look, all the way across, which might look good for an image, it doesn't look that great for text. So we're going to think about a certain layout that we might create. And Twitter Bootstrap divides up your web page into 12 different columns, 12 imaginary columns that are behind the scenes. So if you can imagine this window being broken up into 12 different columns of equal width, we're going to try to figure out a layout that might work best for us. And so let's just go ahead and look back at the Get Bootstrap website just for an example. When I go to the Get Bootstrap website, you can see that obviously this big purple area, that will be very similar to what I have here. It's a full width. It's maybe just in a container div or some kind of a column that's just one. But down here we've got 3 different areas of content. We've got the preprocessors, one framework, and then full of features. That would be basically taking your 12-column div, your 12 columns that are behind the scenes, and dividing them up into 3 different equal areas of content. And so what's happening here is, even though it looks like 1, 2, 3 columns, what's happening behind the scenes is it's saying, okay, put 4 of those 12 here, put 4 of the 12 here, and put 4 of the 12 here. It took those 12 imaginary divs, columns, and it divided them up by 3, and so there's 4, 4, and 4, all adding up to 12. As we scroll down here, this might be a 3, 3, 3, 3. Again, that adds up to 12. 3 imaginary columns, 3 imaginary columns, 3, and then 3 more. So you can kind of see just by this basic layout that they have that you can kind of see what those columns would do. So as we go to the Get Bootstrap website and click on CSS, you can see that there's an option here that says Grid System, and that is a little bit more easily described down here in their grid system. You can tell what it's all going to look like. You can see that these 12 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, are kind of behind the scenes. You could make a 12-column website, although I don't know what you'd use that for, other than maybe you had social icons, and each one of these would be small enough for a website. But most sites will have like an 8-column and a 4-column. This looks like it's a main area of content plus a sidebar. This would be a 4, 4, 4, where you have what we saw in that previous example, where it was basically looked like 3 different sections of content. You could also have a 6 and 6, but anything that adds up to 12. So you could do a 2, 8, 2, or a 3, 6, 3. And so you can see here that the structure of these divs are denoted by using this class equals row. So if I wanted to make, for example, let's take this 8-column and the 4-column, if I wanted to use that layout for my website. It doesn't look like much just because there's not much content there, but you can see the layout will be 8 wide and then 4 wide. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that down here where it says row. I'm going to grab that, and then I'm going to grab the div of the medium 8 and then the medium 4, and then I'm going to select the closing of that div. What's happening is every time you see this class equals row, it means you're going to start a new layout. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, just Command C, and I copied the layout of 8 and 4. So now when I go back to my website and I go down below my welcome area, I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. Okay, so when I save it and then look at it in my browser, it doesn't look like much either. There's really not much there, but it's got my column 8. You can see it goes pretty wide, and then it's got my 4. Now I want my welcome information to actually be the 8-column. I want it to take up 8 columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take where it says, this column medium 8. That's really where it wants my actual content to go. I don't want it to say column medium 8. You can see it's black because that's what it's going to have for my content. I'm going to go ahead and grab my H1 and my paragraph, take all that stuff, and I'm going to take it out of there, and I'm just going to paste it right within my column 8. So really what I did now is I've got my row opening up, meaning it's going to start a new layout. Then I've got my div class of medium 8, and what that's going to do is it's going to be 8 units wide, and then I've got my H1 all the way down to my paragraph, and then it's closing those 8 units. And now I've got a 4 here. And what am I going to do with that? Well, there's lots of different things you could do with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add an H3, and I'm going to say follow us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some Twitter widget code in there, which I already have here. I created it over in Twitter. I made a widget for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right in there. So essentially what I have here is I've got a row. It's going to say a new layout, and then I've got a div that's saying go 8 wide, and then I've got another div that says only go 4 wide. In the 8 wide, I've got an H1 and a paragraph. In my 4 wide, I've got an H3 along with the Twitter widget. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and save it and refresh. And that is basically what I told it to do. I told it to create an 8-column div and then a 4-column div. Now, what about this container fluid that I created? I kind of took stuff out of it. What I do want to do is I want to collect all this, and I want it to all really go inside that one big container div because I still want it to come away from the edge a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and not close my container div right away, but I'm going to close it after I've closed my layout. Okay, save it and refresh, and now it jumped away from the edge just like I wanted it to, and now I've got an 8-4 layout. And then you can go back and add in some spaces and some kind of tabs just to make sure you know where things open and close. I like to do this a lot just to keep track of where everything is. And then I can see that here at a glance, I've got my container fluid, which has my entire new layout. I've got my row, which says create a new layout, and that is everything I've selected here. And within the row, I've got an 8 column, and then I've got a 4 column.